So we're going to tag team this Battletech vlog here, looking at the Marauder. I was engaging with the discussion online, Facebook group, fellow mech warrior had obtained a number of older mechs, some of the classic mechs. We've got some Marauders, we've got a Rifleman, we've got 2 or 3 Warhammers, we've got kind of the old school Battlemaster where it's all molded into one piece. Some really, really interesting sculpts that they were able to score, combining them with the new game of Armored Combat, jumping into Battletech. And they played a couple of games with the Marauders. Obviously, admittedly, for myself also, some Robotech influence here. I mean, the Marauder's kind of a classic mech. And they were having some challenges with that. And in yesterday's podcast, we were looking at kind of building this checklist. If you're running a heavy mech or you're running an assault mech, a couple of points to keep in mind. So I think it's got some good synergy here, and we'll ride this Battletech vibe as we can. So the first thing with many of the inner sphere type mechs, especially ones that are mounting dual PPCs and dual missile launchers, the LRM-20s, in this tech era, these are the weapons that deal the most damage that are out there per shot or potential, with the missiles, but they deal the most heat. And a lot of mechs, not all the mechs, there are some exceptions like the Grasshopper, but most of the mechs are going to have heat issues. So you are not, it's going to be very challenging. You're not necessarily firing those 2 PPCs every turn. When you look at that, you're like, well, why are there 2 on there? Redundancy. There's 2 because when you get that arm blown off, as it happens in Battletech, you're still in the game, so to speak. But the first thing with the Marauder is I really kind of view the Marauder as a long-range energy fire support mech that is capable of closing when it senses that weakness, when it can taste that weakness, compared to, say, a longbow, which is an excellent, excellent machine for long range. But once you've opened something up, you can't close on there. It wants to destroy you from range. So the first question I ask with the Marauder, what's setup? What's the physical setup on there? Because we're going to pace ourselves. We are going to fire 2 PPCs as often as we can. I want to push out the 20 points of damage. I want to push out the redundancy on there. If I can get into a tactical position where I don't have to move, but I've got some cover, like, I'm in a forest hex or something like that, then even better, because I'm going to be building that heat, but I want to at least be bringing down those modifiers in terms of my movement, whether I'm walking or running. I don't want the +1 or the +2. I want that +0 on there. But I need to be aware of what else is in play, not just mechs, but other units, because if you're going to, here's like an example. If there's a rifleman across the field and it's happy to kind of trade shots with me, all right, we'll do that on there. Then I can push the 2 PPCs more aggressively. But if there's a mech that's closing, I don't want to be building heat and then mechs close or something closes and now it's so close I can't adequately respond because the heat is so high. The other challenge here is we've got the autocannon. That's a blessing and a curse. And it's not so much a curse. Yes, you could go to internals, hit the ammo, spark off, and explode. But it's more of an issue with heat. When you push mechs with ammo that have heat, you got to watch out for those explosions. Where if you're an all-energy mech, then or an energy mech that can potentially dump the ammo, like the Grasshopper on there, dump it out. Now you're all energy. You can push the heat even more because, not that you want to get shut down, but you're only dealing with, modifiers to movement and shooting and shutdown as opposed to modifiers, shutdown, ammo explosion. So I need to be aware as a Marauder pilot, well, what's the flow of the battle? Where are things around me? Who's going to potentially close on that mech or could close? Because I want to start clearing the heat. So maybe I fire off opening game 2 shots. Then I jump down to 1. Then maybe I go back to 2. Then I jump to 1. You'll pace yourself. You'll push that heat. We want to clear it on there. The autocannon is paired with the PPCs on there in terms of output and range. So generally it's, since the autocannon deals much less heat, essentially you're like PPC, chaining those, or if you're firing one PPC, you're also firing the autocannon. So at least it's putting down those 2 shots a turn. And that's, even alternating back and forth, that's some decent firepower on there. That's got some bite. When you've weakened your target, or if another target comes into range that's weakened, maybe it's trying to pull back, that's where now the Marauder wants to close. And that's where it's going to go to work with its lasers and its autocannon on there. Now, compared to, this is where it's like a long range and kind of medium close range mech. It's not just like a danger close 1, 2, or 3 hexes away. Compare that to another popular mech. We often look like Warhammer versus Marauder on there. The Warhammer has a brace of lasers. It has the machine guns. It has a short-range missile pack. That can put out a lot of potential damage and dice at very, very close point-blank range on there. The Marauder, there's not much incentive to get that close. If you can stay at medium range, or you can close to the minimum band to put you into short range, you don't want to get much closer than that. There's no reason to, because you don't have to worry about machine guns or short-range missiles or small lasers just to kind of shoot that out. But at that point, generally speaking, you're kind of shutting off your PPCs, because you need to watch out for the minimums on there. I've done this before, full warning, but, I push the heat. I go for the glory. Tactically speaking, if I was to give good advice, you don't want to fire the PPCs at under minimum, especially if your opponent is moving, if you're moving and you're under the minimum. It's not worth the risk. You don't have the heat management on this mech where you're like, okay, look, I'm just going to push out the PPC, because if I hit, it's 10 points of damage. And if I do PPC plus lasers plus autocannon, I can cripple that mech. I'm going to tell you right now, like, you can crunch the numbers on there. You're most likely going to miss with that PPC. Once we start stacking on you're moving, they're moving, minimums, it's just going to spike the heat. It's going to kill you. Better to have the consistent medium lasers or the consistent autocannon on there to deal with it. So it's interesting. It's kind of a fire support energy type mech that needs to be careful how and when it closes. And I don't consider it to be a really up close, down and dirty, fire mech, brawler type mech, say like a Warhammer on there, or some of the other mechs with that. So pushing it out to you guys, your mech company, you've just received 3 Marauders ready to go, fully operational, not too banged up on there. Don't ask how you got them. You don't want to know. Tactically speaking, how do you play this machine?